Welcome to the original Gangsters News Network and podcast. I'm your host, Scott Burnstein. Very special edition. We're going to bring on an author, a man that's after my own heart, writing about true, not necessarily a true crime story. It's a fictional story that's inspired by true crime. His name's Lake Mead. The book is called Body in a Barrel, and you might remember that term because we've said it a couple times, more than a couple times in the last five or so years. So the book is based. It's a fictional story. We're going to turn it over to Aaron in a moment. But if people can recall, about 4 years ago, bodies started to appear in Lake Mead in Las Vegas, just popping up onto the beach. There were like 5 bodies in 5 months, and then they've continued to surface. And there's a lot of speculation that these were bodies that were, or at least some of them, were tied to the Mafia and Tony Spilotro and the crazy run in Vegas that the Spilotro had that was depicted in the movie Casino. Aaron was inspired by that, wrote a book, researched it. We brought him on here to talk about it. Aaron, just tell us about the book and about your research process.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So you're right. You're kind of pinpointing that moment of inspiration back in 2022. The lake was maybe just a little background on me. Like I'm a water engineer by day, so I'm a writer based in the LA area, but I also work for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, and I help to bring the water imports to Southern California from the Colorado River. Of course, the biggest reservoir on the river is Lake Mead, right near Las Vegas there. And back in 2022, that lake was getting pretty low. It got to its lowest level since filling. And these bodies started showing up on the shoreline, as you said. Most of them, I think authorities think are just drowning victims, sort of scattered bones on the shore, which, tragic, but nothing mob related there. But then this one in the barrel with the bullet hole gunshot wound in the head seemed pretty suspicious. I basically, a colleague of mine forwarded this tweet to me that said something like, how funny would it be if the Las Vegas mob suddenly became climate activists, right? Wanting to keep their bodies underwater, so to speak. So after I stopped laughing, the gears kind of started turning in my head about a story. And I just started wondering about, how did this body get there? And what are the circumstances? And so I started doing some research, as you said. And so, I mean, it's really an unsolved crime at this point. Authorities, I believe, are still looking into it, but they don't know who did it exactly. They don't know who the victim was, but they have some suspicions. So,
well, I'm going to kind of use this as an opportunity after we talk a little bit more about your book to go through the possibilities of who that body could be. But okay. The body in the barrel was definitely the eye grabber, the headline grabber.
Yep.
I think it was the first body to be reported that had surfaced. Mm-hmm. A bullet in the back of this person's head.
So actually, I think there was one that was just a drowning victim first, and then this barrel showed up. Anyway, yeah, but technicality.
And they were able to trace the timeline because of the type of clothes he was wearing.
Yeah, exactly. They thought the body, the clothes were from Kmart in the late 70s, early 80s, right? So That's, of course, the heyday of the Chicago mob in Vegas. And so that kind of got them on the trail there. And that got me researching. So that's the era I started looking into, reading some good stuff. And as you say, that's the era of Tony Spilotro, right? The kind of Chicago mob enforcer from that time period. He ran a gang of thieves that would break in places and called the Hole in the Wall Gang. I'm sure some of your viewers are familiar with that, but you'd punch holes in walls to avoid the security systems. But also, of course, he had some hitmen who were kind of doing the dirty work for him. And
well, he himself was a hitman that was tied to dozens of homicides. So he was somebody that even at that point, when he was a crew boss and the de facto godfather of Las Vegas. Like, I think he was going out doing hits himself as well.
I think you're right. At least from the depiction in Casino, he took a creepy pleasure in it, right? So yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's quite a guy.
So your book tells the story of Lenny Battaglia, who's a fictional mob figure.
Yeah.
Kind of just give the audience a synopsis of how the true crime events inspired the story, and kind of just what the story is going to be. Just give some of the beats so people know before they purchase.
Yeah. So basically, Lenny Battaglia, my main character, as you said, he's a former mobster associate. He reads the headline in the paper about this body that shows up on the shore of Lake Mead, and he gets worried. Not because he carried out the hit for this one, but because he's got a barrel farther out in the lake with his name on it. And so he's watching the lake levels drop, and he's starting to get worried about his barrel showing up. So he goes out in his little boat, fishing boat, and tries to move his barrel farther out into the lake to cover his tracks, right? He doesn't want the cops sniffing around, but he's not successful. So he's a little too old, a little too weak. And it's pretty darn hard to move a heavy barrel from underwater anyway. So he ends up falling in the lake and having this flashback moment to his murder. And so the story really goes from there. It's not a kind of classic crime novel in the sense of like a police procedural or a private eye investigation solving a murder. You from the beginning kind of who did it and what the crime was. The real kind of stuff of the story is about Lenny dealing with the aftermath of what he's done. It's about a person kind of grappling with having done something terrible. So
it's like you have some of the the human condition played into the crime. Leonard, Elmore Leonard, James Ellroy type story, and then you add that aspect to it. I really enjoyed reading through it and having you on to tell everyone about it. I find as much as I love just traditional true crime, because that's that's the kind of content I produce. That's the kind of content I've always consumed from a young age, whether it be books or movies or documentaries. But I've grown in a real appreciation for historical fiction, where you have a fictional event that's embedded in real life timelines and real life scenarios and situations with a lot of like cultural touchstones and stuff. So this is kind of along those lines, even though it's a modern day tale about an old murder. It has that kind of flavor. Was there any part of that this was rooted in? Like, did you have a historical fiction? Did you read a lot of historical fiction?
I do, yeah. So I have actually a novel in the drawer that I've written a while back. That's a historical novel. It's one of my favorite genres, honestly. I'm just fascinated by history, and
me too.
Fiction is this way of sort of imagining yourself into that era and that story, and it kind of brings history alive, honestly. I think I feel bad for a lot of kids, in their history classes these days, because they get this list of facts and figures and dates, and it just ends up really dry and dead. But the truth is, these are real people, living out real lives, real stories. And so I just think fiction brings that alive, and it's fascinating. To be honest, I like to learn my history by fiction these days.
Yeah. It's such a I've never written fiction before. I've written 6 books that are all just true crime nonfiction, but I've played around with a lot of like outlines and sketching out ideas about doing an historical fiction novel. I have like 5 different concepts in my head that I have mapped out on my laptop. So one of these days, when I get a couple free months and I'm away out in my writing cabin, I'll crack open some of those outlines and start trying to do my own piece, like Body in the Barrel. Aaron's, Aaron did a great job. He reached out to me, and I devoured the manuscript. We got this thing turned around pretty quickly, and I'm really excited to have him on here and tell you guys more. So, Aaron, can you talk a little bit about the how your work informed you regarding the circumstances about the Lake Mead, about the water levels dropping? And I remember reading a few years back that they didn't really think this was going to be necessarily a quick fix, and they thought that maybe bodies would be continuing to surface for years, and the levels of the water could continue to precipitously go down.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, things are looking so. Yeah, so my work definitely informed this. I mean, I kind of learned about it by reading the news about it, of course, which I track really closely on the Colorado River. But yeah, I mean, there's currently a process of trying to develop some new operational guidelines for the big reservoirs on the river, because the current rules expire this year. And so, there's this big grand negotiation going on between the 7 states that share the water from the Colorado River. And it's looking kind of bleak recently, honestly. They've been trying to come to an agreement and have not been able to. And so in the meantime, the hydrology is looking really bad. There's not a lot of snow in Colorado these days. This season, the lakes are dropping. And so there is potential for it to go even lower potentially than what we saw in 2022 in Lake Mead, and Lake Powell is also pretty threatened upstream. So it's definitely a concern, and it's driven by, in part, climate change, also drought, but then also just overuse. We use too much water from the river. So I think there really is a potential for more stuff to be showing up on the beaches, as the lake gets lower and lower. Hopefully not too many more bodies, but you never know.
Do you have any, based on your research or just the knowledge that you have, first of all, I guess this is a 2-part question. First, was this something that the authorities in Nevada had been expecting, like had been getting word from people like yourself that study water and water levels, that this could be an issue when it arose 4 years ago? Was this something that surprised them?
I don't know that it surprised them. I mean, lake levels move pretty slowly, and the folks that kind of operate the reservoirs, the Bureau of Reclamation, they're always forecasting where things are going. So we're looking out, at least 2 years into the future, and certainly the next 12 months are, they're on the radar pretty clearly. So people knew the lake was going to be going down. I don't know if people anticipated all the bodies that would be showing up, but yes, lake levels, people are tracking those, and that's why people are worried right now, because the forecasts don't look good. So, not enough snow, and the reservoirs look like they could go down.
I guess the second part of the question would be, if you're the municipality that is in charge of Lake Mead,
mm-hmm.
What are there measures that you can take that reverse or stop the damage?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's, so one of the things that happens is when there's not enough snow, not enough rain, and not enough water flowing in the river down to the reservoirs, some of the biggest water users, Arizona, California, Nevada, take cuts, right? So we have to reduce the amount of water we get from the river, which can leave us either having to find water elsewhere, or just cutting back on how much people use in the area. So we have programs, conservation programs, for example, that encourage people to tear out their grass in the LA area. Nevada and Las Vegas is especially strong in that regard. They have really big financial incentives for you to pull out your grass. And I think they've actually banned non-functional turf. So turf that's not used for, say, sports or parks or something, that you're not allowed to put any new grass in. So those kinds of measures definitely put in place those have been in place for many years to try to reduce the amount of water we take from the river.
I'm going to digress for one moment. And
Sure.
I want to, it's going to connect. but it's a little bit of a aside. When we're talking about historical fiction, we're talking about the West Coast, we're talking about water. It reminds me of a certain legendary film that taught me a lot about history, and that was Chinatown, and the value of water. And for people that might be unaware, Chinatown is I'm sure everybody's heard of the movie. Maybe you haven't seen it, but it was a classic Jack Nicholson, Roman Polanski film from the 70s, and it's about a private eye that is investigating a scandal involving water. Is that and it's historical fiction
to some extent. I mean, yeah. So one of the things that historical fiction writers do is they can, take multiple events and kind of blend them into one, or take multiple characters and blend them into one, just as a sort of story device. Because you don't. Sometimes history is a little too kind of tangled and complicated for a good story. At least in a movie, especially, it's got to be really tight for a screenplay. But yeah, but I mean, it is based on real events, like, for example, the creation of the LA Aqueduct, which brought water to the LA area. That was done under pretty shady auspices. Not exactly like portrayed in the movie, but you had some shady business going on. So it's definitely, if nothing else, it captures the kind of vibe and the feel of that era and some of what was going on. So yeah.
Okay, so now I want to do kind of a deep dive into who the body in the barrel, the real body in the barrel, not the fictional body in the barrel that is in the book Body in the Barrel by Aaron, which everybody go out and buy and read, and we'll let everybody know where you can find it at the end of the episode, or we'll scroll it. But there's, as you mentioned, there still has not been any clear identification of any mob hit victims, because this was is a big tourist destination. It's people are using that lake nonstop, year round. It's been going on for, I don't know when the lake was. It's a man-made lake, I believe.
It is, yeah. It's a reservoir. Back in the 30s, 40s, it was filling, yeah.
So they have not identified the mob victim bodies, but they have been able to clear out some deaths that look to have been accidental deaths, drownings, and whatnot. But in terms of who the Las Vegas local authorities, who the federal authorities think, the bodies that people were disposed of in Lake via Tony Spilatro's crew. And there are lots of possibilities, but we don't have any clear-cut answers. So I kind of want to go through, the desert hit parade, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
And then I'll give my take on who I think is the body in the barrel, and I have some pretty good sourcing on this. I'm surprised that it has not been either the body has not been ID'd, or the government's not telling us.
Right. Yeah, it's always a possibility.
So Tony Spilatro landed in Las Vegas in the early 70s. They brought him there to it's so ironic. They brought him there because the person before him had been causing too many headaches and making too many waves in the press. Marshall Cofano, aka Johnny Shoes. So Marshall was brought back to Chicago and replaced with Tony Spilatro, who you want to talk about making waves, man. He made what Marshall Cofano did, look like nothing. I mean, Marshall Cofano was barely in the papers. He was in the papers a little bit. It was kind of a mover and shaker type. Was a killer, but nowhere near the headline grabber or the note gain the notoriety that Spilatro did right away.
Mm-hmm.
And you went from a city that really didn't have a lot of homicides, definitely not a lot of gangland homicides, to the first 20 months or first 2 years that Spilatro's there, there's like 25 murders. And the murder rate goes through the roof in Las Vegas in the 70s. So I'm just going to throw out a couple. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but go through some of the more prominent murders that took place during that era. The first one that got a lot of headlines was in June of 73. And it was a bookie named Joey Red. His real name was Bill Klim, but he went by the nickname Joey Red. And he was a loan shark and a bookie in Las Vegas. And he was gunned down in the parking lot of the Churchill Downs race book. He was resisting shakedown efforts from Spilatro's crew. And Spilatro was actually charged with the murder, but the case was tossed before trial. March of 74, there was an LA mob associate named Johnny Dubeck and his wife Franny, who were gunned to death by the Westward Hotel and Casino. The belief is that Spilatro carried out that hit for the LA Mafia. And then May of 75, Caesar's Palace Casino pit boss Marty Buccieri, whose brother was two brothers were both prominent mobsters in Chicago. He's shot to death after demanding a finder's fee for helping broker a financing deal for the front man for the mob. In the movie Casino, he's known as Philip Green. In real life, his name was Alan Glick. Mm-hmm. So Buccieri was killed for trying to shake down the front man. We saw this murder depicted in the movie Casino. Tamara Rand, who was a female that was an investor in the casino ownership group that the Chicago mob controlled. She was trying to get litigious and wanted them to open the books. So they killed her. They went to California and they killed her. Okay, now we get into some of the murders that I believe could play a role in the body in the barrel. I will say that my research has brought me to one name, and I'm going to say that name now, but there are other possibilities. So I've been told that investigators, I haven't checked in on them in a year or two. So this could be old information. So I apologize if it is, if anybody from the law enforcement in Las Vegas is watching this and thinks that I'm putting out old information. But a year or two ago, I talked to people that were involved in the investigation, and they were pretty confident. I don't know if I'm miscategorizing, but maybe not pretty confident. They felt strong enough to tell me that they believed most likely that the body in the barrel was Johnny Pappas, a guy by the name, real name was Johnny Pagey and Tacos, Chicago mob affiliate, involved in politics, moved to Las Vegas from Chicago, got involved in different casino endeavors, was running a Teamster union-funded resort for Spilatro and those guys. And he disappeared on his way to a meeting at a restaurant called JoJo's. On August 18th, 1976, his abandoned car was found 3 days later in the parking lot of the Circus Circus. And around that time, Tony Spilotro had his headquarters in the Circus Circus. He had a lot of connections to the Greek mob, which was a part of the Italian mob in Chicago. Gus Alex, who was I think he was half Greek, but he wasn't Italian, but he was a major player in Chicago, and that's where Johnny Pappas kind of came from, and that's how Johnny Pappas got his job in Vegas was through Gus Alex. And had you heard that name, Johnny Pappas?
I have, yeah, I have. I did a little reading, and that's the one that came up for me as well. I don't know if there's more you want to say, but the other thing about Johnny Pappas apparently is he had a boat at Lake Mead.
Right.
And this or at least the article I read speculated that it could have been Spilotro or his crew might have lured him to the restaurant on the ruse that they were interested in buying his boat. So you can imagine them kind of going out to Lake Mead to look at the boat, and then they knock him off and dump him from his own boat or something.
Well, let me just add some color and context. He didn't just have a boat on Lake Mead. I mean, he did have a boat on Lake Mead, but it was more than that. The resort that he was in charge of, which I believe was called the Echo Park.
Echo Bay. Yeah.
Echo Bay. Was on Lake Mead. So he was at the scene of the crime on a daily basis, or close to a daily basis, I guess.
Yeah,
probably a daily basis if he's running the resort.
Yeah, sure.
And this is around the time where they think that the murder took place in the late 70s, early 80s. October 76, a MGM Grand Casino baccarat dealer, a guy named Peter Bufala, is killed in his driveway. November 76, a mob associate named Fat Jerry Delman, who ran a book for Spilotro in Vegas at a place called Saratoga Race and Sports Book. He was murdered. And then we get into another name that I think it's possible, and that is Jay Vandermark, whose body we never found, a person who had a character based on him in the movie Casino. And the character in Casino was named John Nance. He was in charge of the count room, the scene in the movie where the mobsters at the truck stop are saying, why are the envelopes getting lighter? And he says, sometimes when you're paying guys to steal for you, they steal from you. It's called leakage. And then the guy says, leakage? Don't tell me anything about leakage. Give me my money. So that leakage and a federal raid of the count rooms, and the worry, they say this in the movie, and the worry that his son, who had been a drug addict, was going to give everybody up, they killed him. In the movie, they kill him and drop him in a swimming pool. Like you said, a lot of times history is too entangled, so they make it easier to digest, and they kind of streamline things. And in real life, that person was never found. Another person named Jerry Listener was killed in a swimming pool.
Right, and in fact, that Listener murder was what I used as the basis for the murder Lenny committed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so
I'm glad I was able to tee you up.
You're sleuthing it out. It's good. Yeah, I love it.
Please color that up in one moment. So
sure.
But Jay Vandermark disappeared August of 76. He disappeared August 1st. It was less than a week it was less than a month after the FBI had raided the Stardust, which was the main casino that in the movie, it was called the Tangiers, but in real life, it was the Stardust.
Mm-hmm.
And he was last seen alive in the parking of the Stardust with members of Tony Spilatro's crew of hitmen that had come in from Phoenix.
Mm.
His son, again, like we were saying about how they change history and make it a little easier to digest. In the movie, they say that the John Nance character took off for Costa Rica. In reality, the son took off for Costa Rica, who was the drug-addled son. He came back, and they killed him too, but they found him. They killed him a year later. But Jay Vandermark disappeared. They never found him, and that's one of the victims of Spilatro that I know that investigators have theorized could be the body in the barrel. Can you give us a little bit of color on what you just said about Jerry Lisner and how that inspired?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so one of the sources I was using for my research for the book was this great podcast called Mobbed Up. It was a podcast put together by the Las Vegas Review Journal and the Mob Museum.
Yeah, I helped out
nice.
with it.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
I was featured in some of them.
Oh, fantastic. I must have forgotten that, but it was fantastic. I mean, super helpful. I'm guessing many of your listeners are fans of the Mob Museum. If you haven't been, man, I commend it to you because that place is amazing.
Oh yeah, I have to shout it out. I'm on the board, so I'm required every time that we talk about it. I got everyone go check out the Mob Museum in Vegas. It's the second biggest tourist attraction in Nevada right now, outside the Hoover Dam.
Wow,
so it shows you how fast the Mob Museum has established itself. It's only been open for 10, 11 years now, 12 years, and it's doing gangbusters. So everybody go check it out. And shout out real quick. I don't want to get too dour, even though we're talking about murders. Shout out to Jeff Gurman, who was the person that was the quarterback of the Mobbed Up podcast, who was unfortunately murdered himself by a deranged subject of one of his investigative pieces a couple of years ago.
Man.
But Jeff Gurman did such a great job with those podcasts. It's sad that he didn't get to appreciate it more because he was killed shortly after they got released. But shout out to him. He did an amazing job. I enjoyed participating, and Aaron got some of his inspiration from that.
Yeah. So
so keep on going.
It's a fantastic museum. I love it. I've been there multiple times. But so the podcast, one of the characters featured on it, of course, is Frank Collada, right? Who was part of Tony Spilatro's gang. And Collada is actually the one who carried out the Lisner murder. He's got a character I based on him in my book, Frank Messina, who's Lenny's kind of former partner.
I caught on to that a little bit.
Yeah, change the names because I don't want people to sort of make a one-to-one correspondence. I want to remember it's fiction, right? But yeah, anyway, so in those interviews on the podcast, Collada describes this Lisner murder where he kind of Lisner was, I guess, trying to find a way into doing some sort of deal with the Chicago mob in Vegas, and the mob started getting suspicious. He just was maybe a little too keen, a little. You probably know the story better than I do, but they suspected he might be an informant or somebody who could be problematic for them. So they sent Collada to kill him, and as Collada describes it, they wanted to keep the gun quieter, so he put half-load bullets in the gun, just half the gunpowder, and so he ended up having to shoot him multiple times because the bullets weren't sinking in far enough because they weren't that powerful, right? And so it was this strange sort of shooting him over and over and over, even in the head, and he just wouldn't go down. So this was especially gruesome, and he ended up in the swimming pool, right? That's the story. He's the one that ended up floating in the swimming pool. His wife found him in the backyard. But this was so kind of gruesome and vivid to me. It inspired me to kind of make that the murder that Lenny had committed back in the day that had really sort of troubled him. So,
and it's also something that ended up flipping Collada. Frank Collada in the movie Casino, he was Frank Marino, and you don't see him flip in in the movie. He doesn't flip in the movie.
Mhm.
He actually kills Tony Spilotro in the movie. That's not what happened. But
And he kills the listener character too, right? It's like
Right.
this strange cameo where he's like cameoing himself in a way.
Well, great. Well, Frank Collada plays the hitman that kills
Listener,
right,
or the listener inspired character. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
The art is, is art imitating life or is life imitating art?
Right. Wow.
But Collada flipped after they nailed him on the in the the famous
Bertha's robbery. Yeah,
Bertha's robbery on July 4th.
Exactly. Yep.
And then they're able to get him. I don't know if they had him on the Lisner murder or if he gave them a Lisner murder, but that was for a guy that had been a pretty prolific hitman.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only one that they were able to nail him on, and it was the thing that got him to flip. I met him.
Oh yeah.
Helped me with some of my book research when my Chicago Mafia book came out.
Mm-hmm.
Was pretty innovative. Was doing a mob tour of Vegas on his own. Not getting the city to back him or anything. Just I put up his own money and rented a like a bus and was like driving the bus around town with people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's innovative, but it's entrepreneurial.
Right. Which also shows up in my book, right?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So then I want to throw out a couple more names of people that the body could possibly
be. Yeah.
One of them is a guy. These are names that I've heard from law enforcement.
Okay.
Since the body started to surface, been in contact with a lot of the feds out there. Not so much the local PD, but they were able to kind of give me some names. The first two, I know the two guys that they've looked at the closest: Johnny Pappas, Jay Vandermark. And then I'm going to throw out a couple other names that they've mentioned to me that they had less confidence in, but guys that disappeared that were most likely murdered by the Spilotro crew, who authorities believe could have ended up in Lake Mead. May 14th, 1977, a guy named Bobby Shaw disappears on his way back to Las Vegas from L.A. He worked in the Spilotro L.A. crew. And was had a history of narcotics busts and hijacking busts, and he left his girlfriend's spot in Venice, and was supposed to be at a meeting in Vegas, and never made it to the meeting. Never found him. 276, 177. And then now we got one from 83, June 4th, 1983. This was the fourth name that the authorities gave me. A guy named Billy Crespo. They called him Billy Bahama. And he vanished. He was on the verge of testifying against 10 Chicago Mafia affiliated drug dealers and casino executives in federal court. The charges in the case were eventually dropped before trial without Crespo being there to take the stand. He was nailed. He had been nailed smuggling $500,000 worth of cocaine on an airplane going from Miami to Las Vegas. Never found his body. Billy Crespo, Bobby Shaw, Jay Vandermark, Johnny Pappas. Those are the four most likely suspects for people that could be the person that was shot, killed, put into a barrel, and dumped into Lake Mead.
Yeah, those are the ones I read about. At least the three of them are ones that I read about as well. So yeah.
So I guess to tell everyone where they can get the book, and maybe just talk a little bit about what you got planned for the future in terms of any writing endeavors and anything else you'd like to touch on.
Sure, great. So, I mean, you can get the book on Amazon. That's the key place it is now. It's out in paperback and also ebook, and honestly, it's also out in audiobook, which maybe your listeners would be real interested in. And that's my favorite version of it. I got this guy, fantastic narrator. He's a Grammy Award-winning narrator, Stefan Rudnicki. His voice is perfect for this kind of a mobster tale. So I commend that to your listeners as well. So yeah, Amazon is a place to look for it. I've got other writing on Substack. You can find out more about me at my website, ameadwriter.com. Yeah. So other projects. So, this is a short piece. It's kind of halfway between a short story and a novel. It's about 100
That's
pages.
why I got through it. So I got through it fast. It was a quick read. It was very enjoyable. If you like this type of stuff, it's right up your alley. It's very descriptive. You set a great scene. I love for somebody that, I don't know. You admit. I mean, you're not a professional author. I mean, you have another job, and then you author on the side.
Right.
By reading this, you'd think that Aaron was somebody that had published 15 historical fiction novels. It's a quick read, and it's brisk, and it's very well told. The narration really stands up, or the way the narrative is, and it comes off very, very professional.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I appreciate those kind words.
I don't want to offend you by saying you're not a professional writer.
No,
I mean,
no.
If you publish, you're a professional writer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I think I am, but I'm a newish writer. I don't have a lot of stuff, books published per se. So still working on stuff. One other thing I'll say about this book is I got a friend who is a screenwriter in LA. Of course, everybody in LA has got a friend who's a screenwriter, right?
Right.
But
you are yourself. You're either the one, or somebody you're related to, or somebody you're friends with.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Sort of stereotype. I guess I fit it. But anyway, he's the real deal. He's done. His name's Scott Teams. He did the most recent remake of The Exorcist. He did the most recent Halloween movie. So he tends to write horror, and he's pretty good at it, pretty successful. And he also does his own films. So he's a writer director, and he's got 2 feature films of his own out, smaller films, but still real quality. And he loved the story. He helped me, one of my early readers, and he's actually working on a screenplay for it. So you may see this thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you may see this thing on the screen at some point. He sure hopes so. So, and he wants to make it himself. So
that is so cool.
Right?
You buried the lead. You should have said that right off the bat. That's awesome. I wish you would have told me that before we jumped on that. And for people that might not understand the way that the entertainment industry works, there are so many things that need to align to get a project from a book manuscript to a television or film project. And you could have 8 of the 10 things you need, and it still doesn't go. There, all the stars have to align, and some of it is just happenstance and good luck and connections. And if you get somebody like you're talking about with Scott, not me, Scott, but
different Scott, right?
You're 100 steps in front of the game when you can get someone like that early on in the process that wants to put skin in the game and help facilitate a development. So that's awesome.
I'm excited.
Like I said, you're so far. It's like a Monopoly board. You just got to jump 15 spots.
I'm excited about it. I'm super excited about it. So and so is he. So we'll see what comes of it. I'm not holding my breath because, like you say, these things are they're delicate. They take a lot of. It's a big team game, right? A lot of things have to align for it to work. But we'll see.
But the fact that you got somebody that committed to it, that has a resume so early in the process. I mean, I know people that are 2-3 years into development with actual names of actors that and directors that and they still can't get someone to write what they want to go make.
Well, for me, it was just dumb luck. He just happened to be one of my good friends, so that's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love the remake of the. I'm gonna go. The remake of The Exorcist. I was a big proponent of.
Oh, nice, excellent, good. Yeah, he's working on The Lowdown right now too, which is a show on. With Ethan Hawke, right? Exactly. Yeah. He's a writer on that. I'm going to be actually directing some, I think, too. So
that is awesome, dude.
Yeah, he's great.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, he's a great guy to know for sure, and also just a good friend. In terms of future writing projects, so I mean, I'm kind of been doing a lot of book promotion lately, so I haven't had a ton of time for writing, but I am kind of thinking about the next project. One possibility is writing a sequel to this thing. Honestly, it's a short piece. I can easily imagine turning it into a novel. I'm not going to give it away, but the ending kind of leaves you thinking, it could be more, so
maybe there's something more.
Yeah. So that's one possibility. I've got another kind of, water related, kind of near future sci-fi-ish type thing, kind of that I'm working on as well. And then maybe potentially another historical piece. So, I got some things in cooking potentially.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Aaron. Aaron Mead. The book's called Body in a Barrel, and it's inspired by the body in the barrel that came up, surfaced at Lake Mead. Show us the book. It looks great. All the talk about Tony Spilotro and unsolved Chicago mob hits from the Vegas of the 70s and 80s, and got a lot of publicity when all those bodies started to pop up. Kind of died down a little bit, no pun intended. But Aaron is bringing it back to the forefront with this book, and it's a pleasure to have you on, sir. We recommend everybody go get it, and thank you so much for taking some time with us, Aaron.
Oh, it's been my great pleasure, Scott. Thanks so much for having me.
So everybody, please go like, share, and subscribe. Original Gangsters News Network and Podcast. Go check out our companion web magazine, The Gangster Report. Members only, our Patreon channel. And Aaron, thank you very much. Thank you to Benny for producing. Aaron, you're always welcome back. Anytime you want, you can come on. You can talk about Vegas. You can talk about bodies in barrels. You can talk about Tony Spilotro. We can talk about water. We can talk about Chinatown. We can talk about The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. Whatever you want, you're always welcome back.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, if this lake keeps dropping, we may have more bodies to talk about. So,
all right. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Scott Burnstein, Original Gangsters News Network, uncovering the underworld, one city, one region, one country at a time. We're out.